Wow, there is a lot to talk about. That was a crazy and thrilling NBA draft lottery. You're watching Philadelphia 76ers now by Chat Sports. Chase Sr. here with you. Producer Chip here to my left. You will see him and hear from him coming up here in just a few moments. Coming up on the show, going to take a look at 5 draft targets who the Sixers could target now that they officially have the 3rd pick coming up in the 2025 NBA Draft. Before we accomplish all of that, a reminder to subscribe to the channel. If you want the best Sixers draft coverage, lock us in. Hit that subscribe button here on 76ers Now. Myself and Chip, we always have you covered. As for the official NBA Draft Lottery results, you are not dreaming. The Dallas Mavericks got the number 1 pick in the NBA Draft. You want to talk about Adam Silver rigging the draft lottery? This is going to get the conspiracy theorists going. The Mavericks trade Luka Doncic away to the Los Angeles Lakers. Historic franchise, major market, and for months, Mavs fans have been coming after Nico Harrison. And somehow, after trading Luka, the Mavericks, who had a 1.8% chance to get the number 1 pick, get the number 1 selection, and they're going to go from Luka Doncic to Cooper Flagg. If that doesn't scream rigged, I don't know what does. It is one of the biggest draft lottery leaps in the history of the NBA, the biggest since 2008, when the Chicago Bulls had a 1.7% chance to get the 1st overall pick. They got the number 1 pick and took Derrick Rose. Mavs get it with a 1.8% chance. And so there was a ripple effect that has been felt by a lot of fan bases across the NBA because the 2 worst teams in the NBA this year, Jazz and Wizards, they dropped down. And so the draft lottery is as such. Mavericks at number 1. San Antonio Spurs jump all the way up to number 2. They can get a piece for Victor Wembanyama, or they can trade that pick. 76ers keep their pick, and they will pick at number 3. It does not go to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So breaking news, that's huge for Philadelphia because they can get a very good player there. Hornets at 4, Jazz at 5, Wizards at 6, Pelicans at 7, Nets at 8, Raptors at 9, Rockets rounding out the top 10. Very talented young team there in Houston. Blazers, Bulls, Hawks, and Spurs 11 through 14. And so with the Sixers on the clock at number 3, you have to imagine Cooper Flagg is going to go number 1 unless Nico Harrison decides to trade that pick away or they don't take Cooper Flagg. I say that tongue-in-cheek. I think the Mavericks are going to go Cooper Flagg, and Cooper Flagg teaming up with Anthony Davis and Kyrie Irving when he comes back. Klay Thompson on that team, a couple of other really good pieces. It makes the Mavericks very interesting. And so the Sixers are going to have their pick at a couple of very intriguing players. That could include Baylor guard, VJ Edgecomb. I personally wouldn't go this route. Other people really like his game. This past year for Baylor, 15 points per game, 5.6 rebounds, 3.2 dimes, 2.1 steals per game. He shot 43.6% from the field, 34% from 3. Chip, as I mentioned, this is not my option, but what do you think about VJ Edgecomb here and the possibilities of him going to the Sixers at number 3?
Yeah, so it's very interesting because throughout the offseason up until now, always a chance the Sixers could jump up, but we kind of been looking at number 5, number 6, thinking that might be where the Sixers land. Now they're at number 3. Like, obviously you mentioned Cooper Flagg probably going to be gone, and I'm just assuming the Spurs are going to go with Dylan Harper. I know they have a lot of guards over there. They traded for De'Aaron Fox. They have Stephon Castle, but I think Dylan Harper is so far above everybody else after him that he should be the number 2 pick. If he's there, I'd strongly consider it, but I'm going on the assumption he's not there. So VJ Edgecomb, I do like him a lot. A little bit shorter for someone that you might be hoping can play on the wing, but a crazy athlete. Some have even compared him to Vince Carter in a way because of that athleticism. The knock on VJ for a while was his 3-point shot, but he really shot it well towards the end of the year. Now, he also wouldn't be my pick at number 3. The guy we're going to talk about next would be my pick at number 3, assuming Flagg and Dylan Harper are off the board. But if you do go VJ Edgecomb, you get a guy who can kill it in transition. He's shown some ability with the ball in his hands, and just a crazy athlete that when you look at the Sixers roster, like, you really don't have anyone that would be to the level of a VJ Edgecomb. He would come into the NBA and immediately be, no joke, one of the best athletes in the entire NBA.
And player number 2 here, as far as our 76ers draft targets, is the player who I'm going with. And that is Ace Bailey out of Rutgers. Very rarely, if ever, will you see 2 Rutgers players going inside the top 5, but they absolutely crushed it with that recruiting class. And Ace Bailey is a player who is athletic, he's long, and I think that he would be a really ideal fit alongside Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain. Yes, you have Paul George, you have Joel Embiid, and Daryl Morey said we're going to run it back with that big 3. You have to start planning for the future. And you're confident in what you have in Maxey, you're confident in what you have in McCain, and hopefully that knee holds up. That is a very intriguing 1-2 punch at the guard spots. You need to address forward wing. And with Ace Bailey, this is a player who averaged 17.5 points per game last year. He rebounds the ball well. He can block shots, 46% from the deck, and he can extend it out to the three-point arc at sub 35%. You're hoping that those numbers can go up over time and he can work out some wrinkles with that three-point shot, but the ability and the shooting form is there. Ace Bailey is my guy over VJ Edgecomb, and that's the route I'm going.
Yeah, I never considered too much this possibility either, thinking the Sixers, where they weren't in that top 4. But, man, the thought of Ace Bailey, he has such a high ceiling because of the player he is, as Chase mentioned. Like, he's athletic, he's long, he's tall, about 6'9", 6'10", and he's very, very skilled, right? He can create his own shot. He can score from any place on the floor. He just has to be a little more consistent and play with a little more IQ in his game. But that's the type of thing that comes along as you play in the NBA and as you develop. These players who are 6'10", who can get it done on both ends of the floor, they don't grow on trees, right?
Yeah.
Like, these are the kind of guys where if you have one of them, they are so valuable to your team. And Ace Bailey has said, like, he looks up to a player like Paul George. He models his game after a player like Paul George. He can be a younger version of Paul George like he was in Indiana, and all of a sudden, like, Maxey, McCain, Grimes, and Ace Bailey fits in perfectly at the position you need. He should be there at 3, and I would run that pick up to the podium. I would love Ace Bailey on this team, man.
Shoot, at this point, if you get Harper or Bailey, you have to like where the Sixers are at. Player number 3, Jeremiah Fears, the guard out of Oklahoma. And this is a draft class where Cooper Flagg is in a class of his own. Then you go Harper, and it's kind of everybody else. But with Edgecomb, with Bailey, with Fears, there's a lot to like. And for Fears specifically, 17 points per game last year. Pretty good defensive player as far as having instincts to get in the way of passing lanes. The shooting percentages are a little bit worrisome for me. He could be a little bit too much of a microwave guy on the offensive end. 43.4% from the field, 28% from 3. What do you think about Fears and the prospects of him being a prospect for the Sixers?
Yeah, so again, like, you're at 3, so you'll have your pick. I think it's one of those top 2 guys for the Sixers, Edgecomb or Ace Bailey. But, looking at these other guys in this area, Fears is somebody who's really risen as of late. Somebody who, a few months ago would have been looking at a potential top 5 pick, maybe more towards that 9-10 range. But with his youth and how good he was at the end of the year for Oklahoma, really being able to score the ball at that guard spot, he's someone that I think for a lot of other teams, around that top 5 would make a lot of sense. But for the Sixers, I don't know if I'd love his fit specifically. And it's kind of similar to when I talk about Trey Johnson, we'll talk about as well. Very talented players, like, no doubt about it. At some point in the NBA draft, like, you just draft for talent, for the best player is. And he's no doubt one of the best players in this class, but just a little bit raw offensively, as a lot of these guys are, just not the ceiling that somebody like a VJ Edgecomb or an Ace Bailey have, but a very good prospect nonetheless. But I'd be shocked if they went with someone like Fears over a Bailey or an Edgecomb.
Yeah, and I know that this prospect could be a little bit of a developmental piece, but Fears to me is a little bit too raw. He's too much of an unknown for my liking. There's Trey Johnson, guard out of Texas, coming in at number 4. And Chip, I know you did a YouTube short recently saying the Sixers cannot draft Trey Johnson. You'll explain that here coming up in a second. For him, 20 points per game, under 43% from the floor. He is comfortable taking the three. He attempted nearly 7 3-point attempts, and he connected on almost 40% of those. But why not Trey Johnson in your eyes?
Yeah, so I want people to understand this, right? I think Trey Johnson is a very, very good prospect. You can't deny his ability to score the ball at Texas in the SEC. Like, you give him the ball, he can create shots for himself anywhere on the floor. But the reason, and I've talked about him on the show before, that I never liked him for the Sixers was kind of similar to when we're talking about someone like Fears, where I don't think you can play him on the floor with both either Maxey and McCain or Maxey and Grimes. Like, I don't think he can play the three, despite, there was reports his height being 6'6". He measured a little shorter at the combine. He's already not like a great defender. Can he be a better defender if he locks and dials in? Sure, and he's got a good wingspan. But there's just too many times for Texas where he wasn't going 100% out there on the floor. He didn't look completely locked in, especially on the defensive end. His shot selection could be pretty poor. And the biggest reason I don't like him on the Sixers is his game plays like somebody who needs to, be that top scoring option. He can certainly play off the ball, but there's a lot of questions of what is his role and what is his ceiling if he's not constantly touching the ball. And I think for the Sixers, I'd rather have somebody that can at least do some other things, but also develop into that. I'm just not sure Trey Johnson is ever going to be, like, he's a great scorer, but will he ever be able to score in enough ways to really be that top option in the NBA like he was in college? Because in college, he could create his own shot on the outside, but never a great finisher. Didn't get to the line a lot. So I think he's one of those guys who was going to be a really good scorer in college, but not quite that in the NBA. And then if he's not doing that, what else is he really doing for your team? That's why I didn't really love him a lot. But I do think he is a very talented player.
And that's why I'm in on Ace Bailey. You play him at the wing, you play him at the 4. He is a player who's going to be able to impact the game on both ends. If he's having an off night on one end, he helps you on that other end. And I just love the skill set. As Chip said it, players of that length and size, they do not grow on trees. Lastly, prospect number 5 is Derek Queen out of Maryland. Maryland making a good little run there in the NCAA tournament, and so a lot of people became familiar with Queen's game. If you want to replace Joel Embiid, if you trade him away, if you're not confident that he can come in off the knee, do you draft his future center replacement? 16.5 points per, 9 rebounds per game. He does have some ability to dish it, defends the rim in a solid fashion, more than a block, field goal numbers, 52.5%. Is this a player who's a modern-day big, though, Chip, or is he more of that old-school big, and does that type of game concern you a little bit?
Yeah, it's very interesting because he's kind of parts of both, I would say. Like, he's not your traditional 7-footer, grab rebounds, defend the rim, do nothing else, because he does have the ability to bring the ball up the floor a little bit, and it makes some plays for others, and you can kind of give him the ball, and he can either back you down or he can try to create his own shot in that short post game, but he also doesn't really have much of a three-point shot. And again, he's not the biggest guy at about like 6'9" and he's not super athletic either. But where people get really excited is comparing him to a player like an Alfred Sengun, for example.
I like him a lot.
Can be a little bit of a playmaking hub. Now, he's not that level of a playmaker. And again, with the limited athleticism and him being a little bit undersized, that does kind of limit what you think he can be. But the skills are definitely intriguing offensively. When you think about your Bam Adebayos of the world offensively, or again, your Şengüns, your Domantas Sabonises, these big men who can make plays for others and do things with a ball in their hands. So I've gone back and forth between him and Malawach as the top center in this draft. I kind of agree with what Chase said earlier about Malawach just being a little bit too raw, and even at Duke, like, there'd be times he would just completely disappear from games.
Yeah.
Derek Queen was a winner. He was the best player on that Maryland team that was very, very good, and I think just to show more offensive skill sets. But at the end of the day, don't think it's going to be him at that pick. I'm locked in on Ace Bailey. I'd be happy with VJ Edgecomb. Has to be one of those two, but I think Ace Bailey makes just way too much sense for this Sixers team and what they need, especially because they're probably going to be losing Gershon Yabusele.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild for Daryl Morey. Like, he's never picked inside the NBA draft lottery, and so I'm frustrated with the Morey experiment. He came to Philadelphia with a lot of expectations. All the Sixers have done is fail to reach those. He has drafted pretty well, though. Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey, 2 Daryl Morey selections, and now maybe the biggest pick of his career. If you think about it, he's made a lot of big trades, but the Sixers have to get this pick correct. Their future is really wagering on it. Daryl Morey and Nick Nurse, their seats are white hot. You get a playmaker in this draft at number 3, you can really change the direction and the course of your franchise alongside Maxey and Jared McCain, 2 really intriguing building blocks already on this team. So with that, this is the big question. Who do you want the Sixers to draft? Join the conversation down in the comments section. Drop us a name. Share your scouting analysis. And as always, thanks for watching.